and therefore we must have a deep and profound and unquestioning reverence for all life, and human life as well as other than human life. And human life is not more sacred than life of the plants or the animals. All life is equally sacred. So I go a step further than deep ecology, and I call it reverential ecology. So from shallow ecology you move to deep ecology, and from deep ecology you go even further and call it reverential ecology.
This video explains the teachings and doctrine of the dark green religion. I tell you the truth, the Antichrist doctrine is embedded in the environmentalism, green movement, and/or sustainable development of Agenda 21. Please, do not stop watching this video until the end. God bless you.
In 1987, Mikhail Gorbachev, also a member of Club of Rome, said, "We are moving toward a new world order, the world of communism, and we shall never turn off that road." Both Strong and Gorbachev stated that it was hoped that this document would be adopted as the new 10 Commandments, with environmentalism as the new one world religion. Out of this summit came Agenda 21.
Dark green religion and deep ecology, moving towards a synthesis of traditionalism and green theory. The rebirth of nature-centric faiths and spirituality, and the aforementioned greening of more established, institutionalized, and mainstream religions takes place in the context of global ecological crises and catastrophes, and to shift public behavior. As such, they are at last turning back to inspiration and knowledge for some of the earliest religious and spiritual beliefs to inform them of an earlier time when humanity lived in harmony as part of nature. The animism, shamanism, and paganism of hunter-gatherer and nomadic civilizations. The traditionalist philosopher Syed Hossein Nasr said in Man and Nature, the Spiritual Crisis in Modern Man, that the environmental crisis is so critical that it is necessary to quickly go beyond what has been done during the past few decades to solve it. What is required is the re-examination of our very understanding of what it means to be human and of what nature is, along with the establishment of the harmony between man and nature. Braun Taylor, an American scholar and conservationist, professor of religion, nature, environmental ethics, and environmental studies at the University of Florida, has coined the term dark green religion and developed it as a field. He has broadly defined dark green religion as a bricolage of religions or spiritual sets of beliefs and practices, characterized by a central conviction that nature is sacred, has intrinsic value, and is therefore due reverent care. Tied in with this belief is a felt kinship with non-human entities and a conscious awareness of the interconnected and interdependent nature of life on the planet. Generally, these belief systems are deep ecological, biocentric, or ecocentric. Dark green religions, as a rule, reject an anthropocentric ontology and cosmogony, as well as positivist methodology, and are critical of modernity, materialism, consumerism, and the Enlightenment ideas of human progress. Dark green religions adopt a holistic rather than an atomized individualist perspective. That is, they value populations, species, ecosystems, and the ecosphere as a whole. The inclusion of the term dark is a reflection of the recognition that as a part of sacred nature, man is in turn both predator and prey. A recognition of the scale and scope of the environmental crisis that confront us, and a reflection that in the end result, revolutionary action and violence may be necessary to save the planet and avert our own civilizational suicide. Taylor categorizes 4 inclusive general forms of dark green religion in the environmental milieu that have explanatory and interpretive power: spiritual animism, naturalistic animism, Gaian spirituality, and Gaian naturalism. These categories include with them such diverse belief systems as animism, shamanism, pantheism, panentheism, and many forms of paganism and ancient polytheism, as well as more modern forms of nature-centric spirituality, philosophies, and radical environmental activism. Deep ecology, a modern ecocentric environmental philosophy with strong spiritual overtones, developed foremost by Norwegian philosopher Arne Nies, can be considered to fit within these categories of dark green religion. Obviously, not all of these types of dark green religion correspond well with traditionalism, any more than all branches of Christianity or Islam do. However, many of them, particularly those informed by ancient traditions such as spiritual animism, do. In terms of perennialism, dark green religions hold nature itself to be sacred, and in one fashion or another, divine. One of the only and perhaps most vital universalisms is the dependence of all humanity on the earth. No matter how disassociated and alienated from nature we may be in our modern urbanized lives, we all in the end depend on the natural world, the biosphere as our life support system. All of humanity can find common and original ground on the necessity of maintaining and living in harmony with the natural world on both existential and spiritual grounds. Thus, for dark green religions, nature itself, as universally sacred, provides the primordial metaphysical basis that lies behind all cultures, societies, and civilizations, through which all of humanity could therefore be said to be transcendentally united. However, dark green religion, while sharing the spiritual conception of diversion of traditionalism, also adds the powerful critique of environmental crisis and catastrophe, with the potential of an existential threat as a further combination of modernity, necessitating an ontological change and the global restoration of a spirituality and metaphysics as a response. In terms of initiation, dark green religions seek to restore the ancient practices and traditions of animism, shamanism, and paganism. This provides rituals and tests of induction into a chain of spiritual adepts going back to supernatural incarnations of the natural world as expressed through a higher plane. These spiritual traditions are the most primordial and antediluvian of human religions, dating to the earliest hunter-gatherer, nomadic, and first settled agricultural societies, when humans lived an existence that was sustainable and largely in harmony with nature, their source of the divine. Those thus initiated through contact with spirits and other deities that incarnate aspects of the transcendent natural world form a vanguard or guides that resemble lodges or groups in the established faiths of traditionalism. For dark green religions, their conception of God, or the sacred or divine, is the creation, one with it, or an aspect of it. They demand the establishment of an ecocentric ontology as a creed of faith and a means of restoring a sustainable balance between man and the natural world, which is at the same time both natural and supernatural. Man is already regarded as part of nature, as the divine, and needs only to commune and live in harmony with it and eventually die and return to the sacred nature, rather than seek an escape to a higher state of being. So in conclusion, the ancient nature religions within dark green religions have much in common with the established religious forms of traditionalism. Most importantly, the quest for a return to a less materialistic and more spiritual society and the rejection of modernity and progress. Dark green religion provides a powerful new environmental critique of modernity as suicidal in destroying its own life support system. However, there remain several basic ontological and metaphysical divides that must be addressed through dialogue before any synthesis between the two could take place. Such a dialogue would, however, in my humble opinion, be of extreme value, as traditionalism and the dark green religions have much to offer each other as allies in the struggle against modernity and materialism. Thank you.
In this presentation, I'm going to explore the emergence and increasing global diffusion and possibly decisive impact on the future of religion and ethics of what I call dark green religion. By dark green religion, I mean religion that considers nature to be sacred, imbued with intrinsic value, and worthy of reverent care. By the phrase, from the ground up, I signal a focus on the roots of such spirituality. By roots, I mean both the intellectual roots, namely the influential ideas of the environmental intelligentsia promoting such spirituality, as well as, and here I echo Donald Worster a little bit from this morning, as well as the contributions of grassroots social actors and movements. I will examine both sorts of roots by looking at a number of examples of dark green religion within what I will call the environmentalist milieu. 4 types of dark green religion. There are too many good examples to fully survey today, so I will begin by analyzing 4 types of dark green spirituality emerging forcefully since Earth Day. Now, the first 2 types that you see on the screen are forms of animism. One I'm calling supernaturalistic and the other naturalistic. The second type I label Gaian Earth religion as shorthand for holistic and organicist worldviews. Again, one form is supernaturalistic, which I will call Gaian spirituality. The other, naturalistic, which I will call Gaian naturalism. Animism is most fundamentally about the perception of spiritual intelligences, or life forces, animating natural entities and living things. Animistic perception is often accompanied by ethical beliefs about the sorts of relationships people have or should have with such beings or forces, or conversely, with sorts of behaviors one should avoid with regard to them. Sometimes animism involves communication or even communion with such spiritual intelligences or life forces. Such a worldview need not, but may, involve the perception that the spiritual intelligences or life forces are divine and should be worshipped and or beseeched for favors. The form I have labeled Gaian spirituality is avowedly supernaturalistic, perceiving the superorganism, whether the biosphere or the entire universe, as an expression or part of God, or Brahman, or whatever the divine cosmology might be, the body of God, a divine cosmos, the great mystery, and so on. It is more likely to draw on deviant or non-consensus science for data reinforcing its generally pantheistic or panentheistic and holistic metaphysics, and is more open to interpretations commonly found in subcultures referred to as New Age. The form I have called Gaian naturalism is agnostic, if not skeptical or disbelieving toward any supernaturalistic metaphysics. It's more likely to restrict its claims to scientific mainstreams as a basis for understanding and promoting holistic metaphysics. Yet its proponents express awe and wonder when facing the complexity and mysteries of life in the universe, relying on religious language and metaphors of the sacred, not always self-consciously, when confessing their own sense of belonging and connection to energy and life systems that they participate in, inhabit, and study. This last type of understanding I'm calling naturalistic animism. So here I'm referring to forms of animism in which there is either skepticism or disbelief that some parallel spiritual world animates non-human natural entities, but that nevertheless there is a strong felt kinship with non-human life, which provides a basis for a fulfilling life and for ethics. For some such thinkers, moreover, real understanding and communion with non-human life forms is possible. According to Donald Worster, this kind of felt kinship and the biocentric ethics that usually accompanies it can be grounded in evolutionary theory and traced directly to Darwin, who in Notebooks on Transmutation wrote, and as quoted by Professor Worster, if we choose to let conjecture run wild, then animals, our fellow brethren in pain, diseases, death, suffering, and famine, our slaves in the most laborious works, our companions in our amusements, they may partake of our origin in one common ancestor. We may thus be all netted together. Darwin realized that this kind of kinship ethic depended on an act of moral imagination, which he calls conjecture. For Darwin, this ethic involves reflection on our common ancestor and awareness that other animals suffer and face many challenges as we do. From this, a felt communion can arise, a kind of naturalistic animism that is independent of metaphysical speculation or supernaturalistic assumptions. Through interviews with both radical and pragmatic environmentalists, and in widely scattered environmental literatures, I've discovered that such a feeling is common for those who understand the evolutionary narrative and its supposition of a common ancestor.
For deep ecology, a common but mistaken view of our own nature is the fundamental cause of ecological problems. It's a mistake to view ourselves as distinct from the natural environment. And it's a mistake to conceive of our egos as atomistic and isolated from other beings. So for the deep ecologist, addressing environmental problems ultimately requires correcting this view by attaining a deeper understanding of our true selves. According to deep ecology, pursuing self-realization is the key to understanding our true nature. In this process, we gradually become aware of ourselves as fundamentally interconnected with everything in nature. We start to see ourselves as more than a narrow ego, and we begin to identify with all other beings. Through self-realization, we begin to see ourself as an ecological self. As Arne Naess puts it, the ecological self is a self that is in, of, and for nature from our very beginning. Now, for philosophers Arne Naess and George Sessions, this ecological understanding of ourself supports 8 principles of deep ecology. First, all life has value in itself, independent of its usefulness to humans. Second, richness and diversity of life helps the realization of these values and are valuable in themselves. Third, humans have no right to reduce this richness and diversity except to satisfy vital needs. The fourth principle says that the impact of humans in the world is excessive and getting worse. Human lifestyles and population are key elements of this impact. Fifth, the diversity of life and cultures can flourish only with reduced human impact. The sixth principle says that policies affecting basic economic, technological, and ideological structures must change, and the resulting state of affairs will be deeply different from our own. Seventh, the ideological change involves appreciating life quality rather than adhering to an increasing standard of living. In other words, there will be a profound awareness of the difference between big and great. And finally, those who subscribe to these points have an obligation to participate in the attempt to implement the necessary changes. All right, in this video we introduced the difference between shallow ecology and deep ecology, and we saw that deep ecology recommends a radical shift in our attitude regarding our relationship with the natural environment. Thanks for watching.
Imagine this the other way around, and to imagine the environment not as something outside of us, but something inside of us. Imagine the natural world, the environment, as a body, right? So becomes a two-way process. How is this possible? Because the natural world and the life of the human body are both the functioning of chi, ourselves as human beings, is continuous in some way with the world around us. There's some kind of continuity, some shared vitality between us and the world around us. So underwriting all of this is this idea of Tao, or the way, the wellspring of life for all forms of creativity in the world. And what I'm trying to do here is to start this process of outlining a kind of Taoist environmental ethics, I suppose. Let's call it like that. And what we can do then.
Jane asked me to speak about green religion, global governance, and the Kyoto Protocol. Of course, you understand that each of those subjects would occupy a conference like this in its own right. So in the next 45 to 50 minutes, I'm going to try to hit the high spots in each of these 3 areas. I think it is exceedingly important that we recognize the connection and the relationship between green religion, global governance, and the Kyoto Protocol. Now, I guess I should begin with defining religion if we're going to talk about green religion. And I think it would be safe to say that religion is a driving force as the result of a belief system that is not justified by science. And I think that would characterize most of the religions of the world. And it certainly characterizes the green religion. The difference, of course, between the green religion and the religion that most of us exercise is the object of religion. For most of us who grew up in the Judeo-Christian tradition, we worship God as the object of our religion, and see God as the creator of the universe. The green religion has a different object of worship, and that is the created instead of the creator. The green religion recognizes the earth to be the source of life. Nature worship, if you will. Now, back a couple of hundred years ago, when I was a 5-year-old beginner in a Southern Baptist church in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, I knew that most of the people in the olden days worshipped nature, rocks, snakes, trees, bugs. And I knew as a 5-year-old that that was called paganism. But as many of the terms have undergone the politically correct evolution of the last few years, so has the term paganism. Thanks to a gentleman named James Lovelock, what once we called paganism is now called the Gaia hypothesis. Of course, you have read The Ages of Gaia, and if you have not read The Green Egg, you're missing a lot of entertainment. The Green Egg is the journal of the neo-pagans with a claimed circulation of some 500,000 in this country, and they speak very highly of Mr. Lovelock's scientific presentation of the Gaia hypothesis, which identifies the earth to be the source of life. Earth, according to the Gaia hypothesis, is a living organism.
I'm going to talk about reverential ecology. You have heard of deep ecology? It was Arne Næss, a great philosopher from Norway, who made this distinction between shallow ecology and deep ecology. And I said to Arne that I respect deep ecology, I love deep ecology, but deep is not necessarily good. You can be in a deep hole. So we need to go a step further than deep ecology. And so I coined the term reverential ecology. And we have to say nature has intrinsic value. Now that's a great step forward. Trees are there not just because they are useful to us and therefore they are good, not just because they give us oxygen, they give us shade, they give us fruit, they give us wood for our fire, they give us wood for our floor, our buildings. But trees are good in themselves. Trees were there before humans came on this planet. Evolution. The oceans and mountains were there before humans came on the picture, on the scene. How can we say the humans are superior and all the forests and all the mountains and all the rivers and all the oceans and all the fishes and all the deer, everything is for us, for our use. They were here before we came. Remember evolution. Remember your college and school books. So nature was there before we came. So nature has intrinsic value. Nature has right to be pristine and clean and live. Rivers have rights. Forests have rights. Not just human rights, but rights of nature. That's a deep ecology. Deep ecology will say the nature is good in itself. But reverential ecology says that yes to that. But nature is also sacred. The life is sacred. And therefore, we need not only to recognize that nature has intrinsic value, there's a kind of intellectual recognition. But with our heart and soul and spirit, we have to have a sense of gratitude to nature. Now, gratitude is a spiritual quality. And the spiritual tradition of all religions, Christians, Hindus, Taoists, Jewish, Muslim, Buddhists, Sikhs, all the religions have this deep tradition. And among you Christians, you will know our patron saint of ecology was St. Francis. And he was the father of the reverential ecology. He spoke with the chickens and the wolf. He was not afraid of wolf. He spoke with wolf. And he looked after chicken and he talked to trees. Now people say Prince Charles talks to trees and therefore he must be weird. But St. Francis talked to animals and trees. He was not weird. He was the saint of ecology, patron saint of ecology.
Welcome to the Real News Network. I'm Sharmini Pires coming to you from Baltimore. Pope Francis, in a 192-page encyclical, which is a papal letter sent to bishops, warned us of unprecedented destruction of ecosystems and serious consequences of climate change if countries fail to act decisively, with a particular focus on how climate change is affecting the poor and developing countries. He rejected the idea of market-based solutions. So let me start with you, Blaise. Give us a take on what the papal actually had to say and your initial thoughts on it.
He is speaking about our common home, this tiny little speck of sand in the universe called planet Earth, and he would like to save it. So this is an important moment for all of us to read, to understand, and to realize that his message is not sectarian. It's non-sectarian. It's a message for non-believers, for atheists, for members of any other sect. So it's worth reading, as many other documents have been.
Our patron saint of ecology was St. Francis. And he was the father of the reverential ecology. He spoke with the chickens and the wolf. He was not afraid of wolf. He spoke with wolf. And he looked after chicken and he talked to trees. But St. Francis talked to animals and trees. He was not weird. He was the saint of ecology, patron saint of ecology. And then we have a great tradition in our Christian and Hindu and Taoist traditions, but particularly now, I was just speaking with one of my great friend, Martin Palmer, in Bath he lives, and he has a kind of religious organization, an ecology and conservation religion. And he was saying that now there's a new awareness among Christians and among Muslims and among many, many other religious groups, planting trees, taking care of the land, taking care of the animals, being compassionate in farming. So reverential ecology recognizes the gratitude. Now trees give us fruit. We take the fruit. We take the wood for our floor, for our beams, for our houses. We say, thank you, trees. That gratitude, thank you, trees. What a wonderful tree you are. From that one little apple seed, where did Buddha get his enlightenment? While sitting under a tree. And nowadays we don't get enlightenment because we don't sit under a tree. When the Buddha was sitting under the tree, he realized the interdependence and the harmony of the universe. The sun in harmony with the tree, and the rain in harmony with the tree, and the birds coming and sitting on the tree, and tree taking nourishment from the soil, and that nourishment is producing fruit, and the fruit is giving nourishment to people, and the birds, and the wasp, and the soil, all the connectedness, interconnected, interdependent, interrelated. We are all no earthworms. There is no Darwin. Darwin did his research, and he came to his evolution studying earthworms. And so the moment we have that gratitude, we have a reverence. And when we have a reverence, we are one. We are nature. Everything what is in the universe is in us. The sun, without the sun, we cannot survive. Moon, without the moon, we cannot be. We are miniature universe, microcosm of the macrocosm.
Wikipedia tells that in December 2006, Cameron described Avatar as a futuristic tale set on a planet 200 years hence, an old-fashioned jungle adventure with an environmental conscience that aspires to a mythic level of storytelling. The story would be of an entire world complete with an ecosystem of phantasmagorical plants and creatures, and Avatar is primarily an action-adventure journey of self-discovery, in the context of imperialism and deep ecology. In a 2007 interview with Time magazine, Cameron was asked about the meaning of the term avatar, to which he replied, "It's an incarnation of one of the Hindu gods taking a flesh form." In this film, what that means is that human technology in the future is capable of injecting a human's intelligence into a remotely located body, a biological body. Wikipedia also tells that Born Taylor has also written about James Cameron's film Avatar and its relevance to dark green religion. He argues that the widespread popularity of the film, in which nature is regarded as sentient and sacred, is a testament to the growing appeal of dark green spirituality around the world.
The environment has become the object of worship for many, and that is a problem. That's a severe problem. Romans 1, verse 18 in your Bibles. The wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all the godlessness and wickedness of men who suppress the truth by their wickedness, since what may be known about God is plain to them, because God has made it plain to them. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, His eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that men are without excuse. For although they knew God, they neither glorified Him as God, nor gave thanks to Him. But their thinking became futile, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Although they claimed to be wise, they became fools and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images made to look like mortal man and birds and animals and reptiles. Jump to verse 25. They exchanged the truth of God for a lie, and worshipped and served created things rather than the Creator, who is forever praised. God made it evident and plain that He exists through creation. He's not one with creation and we're one with creation and so we're one with God. It's that creation cries out that God is real. The more we study and that nature and science and all that, the more awe we should have towards God. But people instead, they push God away, they avoid God, they ignore God until there's a tragedy. Have you ever noticed that?